The family dinner started like any other. Warm laughter, the clink of plates, my mother fussing over the food while my sister told one of her loud stories. For once everyone had found a night that fit, and I wanted to keep the mood light. I reached across the table, caught my wife's hand for a second, and leaned in with a half-joke, "Honey, want some wine?" Her answer landed like an unexpected stone in still water. She set down the serving spoon, met my eyes, and said, "No, I already had enough with someone else earlier." The noise at the table dimmed as if someone had turned the sound down on the world. Conversations stalled and faces turned. I forced the laugh that felt ridiculous on my lips, the kind of laugh you make when you hope a thing can be shrugged off. But she didn't smile. Her expression was flat, almost satisfied. "A friend from work," she added, as if that tiny phrase could fix the shock. No one moved. My father stopped mid-bite. My mother's hand hovered over the platter. I could feel my pulse in my throat. After the guests left and the house emptied of the careful looks my family always sends when something is wrong, I demanded the truth. She deflected at first. "It was nothing, just a drink, don't make a scene." Her voice had a casual cruelty I hadn't heard before, like someone testing a new game with rules she alone understood. I wanted to punish her with anger, to shout and ruin her in the same public way she had tried to ruin me. Instead, I did something quieter. I watched. I listened. I stopped reacting when she tried to bait me. The small humiliations she threw at me, sharp remarks, late nights at the office, a new perfume that wasn't mine, I catalogued them in my head like evidence rather than fuel for a fight. Revenge, I decided, would be careful and final, not noisy and foolish. I hired a private investigator. It felt strange to admit I needed help to prove what I suspected, but I refused to let her control the narrative by calling me paranoid or jealous. The investigator brought back names and times, messages that stopped being friendly, receipts from dinners at odd hours, a pattern of phone calls that matched her office overtime. I read everything with my face a neutral mask. Inside, the betrayal stung, but the facts calmed me. With proof in hand, I began to plan. No angry texts at midnight, no confrontations in front of our neighbors. I would do this where she had tried to humiliate me, in public, with witnesses who mattered. I reserved the community hall where our extended family and a handful of her closest colleagues could easily gather under the pretense of celebrating my parents' anniversary. A small, respectable lie to get the people I wanted in one room. On the night of the anniversary, the hall glittered with candles and the scent of biryani. My wife arrived perfectly made up, confident in whatever private life she believed she could hide. Her colleague, the man from the messages, came too, smiling too wide, oblivious. I stood up to speak after the first course, and I let my voice be steady as I thanked everyone for coming. Then I asked for silence. I pulled out my phone and, with a kind of calm that takes more courage than screaming, I played the audio files the investigator had captured. Casual conversations between my wife and the man, full of the small cruelties of two people who thought they were careful enough. I showed photos of receipts with timestamps and a string of messages that began with jokes and ended in promises. The room went beautifully, painfully quiet. She turned the color of something that isn't quite any one thing. Ash, then red, then pale. Her colleague's smile died slowly. People shifted in their seats like fish sensing a storm. My mother covered her mouth. My father's hands trembled. My wife tried to speak, to laugh it off, to call it a mistake, but the evidence kept talking over her. Friends who had once nodded at her stories now looked away. The colleague tried to leave, but his partner's number, also in the investigator's report, was on my screen, and she was there at the hall within an hour, eyes wild and betrayed in a way that no one could misread. She confronted him beside the caterer's samosas while our relatives watched. The humiliation that had been only hinted at for months unfolded for everyone. The denials, the excuses, the woman who had been lied to standing in our rented hall and demanding answers. After the chaos died down, I handed the divorce papers to my wife in front of her family and mine. I made no speech. There was no need. The paperwork was clean, prepared by a lawyer who had been briefed on the evidence and the timeline. She begged, she pleaded, she promised anything. I watched each promise fall like a used tissue to the floor. Her apologies sounded small in the room that had once been warm. When the legal dust settled, I took nothing vindictive. I insisted on a fair settlement, not to punish her with money, but to refuse the role of the man who is ruined. I moved out with dignity, taking only what I needed and what I could fairly call mine. The real revenge had never been to ruin her life financially. It was to reclaim mine and to remove the power she thought she had by exposing the truth calmly and publicly. Months later I found peace in ordinary things that don't make for dramatic scenes. A job where people notice my work, friends who stood by me not out of spectacle but out of loyalty, a small apartment that felt like mine for the first time in years. My family's silence turned to steady support. Her name stopped being a trigger. It became a story I could tell without heat. I ran into her once at a grocery store, both of us with lives that fit into baskets and lists. She stared, then looked away. The man was nowhere to be seen. I didn't gloat. There was nothing to gain from the look of shame I caught in her eyes. My revenge had been served, not by breaking her, but by walking away whole, by letting truth do the breaking that people who cheat and lie inevitably deserve. The last scene of the whole thing is small and almost silly. One evening I uncorked a bottle of wine alone, poured myself a glass, and tasted it without the need to offer it to someone who would answer with a joke meant to wound. I raised my glass to my own reflection and to the hard, steady work of rebuilding. Revenge, I learned, is most complete when you replace the place she stole from you, your peace, with something that can't be taken away.